Hi, this is Shadow Coast and welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll be discussing the latest video for Necromunda Underhive Wars outlining some of the gameplay we can look forward to on September 8th when the game releases. Before we jump into discussing the details of the gameplay video, I am trying to grow my channel and appreciate a subscribe and thumbs up if you find this video interesting. In the description below, you'll find links to the various sources I reviewed before producing this video, as well as timestamps so you can jump to specific chapters of the video. Finally, at the end, I'll let the full video play for you to reference. To begin with, the game at launch will allow us to play 3 different gangs, which are House Orlok, House Escher, and House Goliath. For reference, there are 7 houses if you include House Oranthus, which is considered a fallen house and was decimated by a plague among other factors. House Orlok is also known as the House of Iron because they are responsible for the majority of iron produced in Hive Primus. House Orlok is also known for their specialty with ranged weaponry. House Escher is primarily composed of women, as the majority of males born in this house are physical derelicts, which is thought to be caused by the plague that similarly wiped out House Oranthus. These female gangers are deadly and agile melee fighters. As a side note, House Escher and House Orlok not only border each other, but are historically considered to be strong allies. This is interesting as the latest video explicitly implies the main storyline campaign will cover allegiances and betrayals, which will be critical to see how this all plays out. Finally, we have House Goliath, whose domain is situated in the most unfavorable and harshest area of Hive Primus. As such, it is no surprise that House Goliath is composed of humongous gene-forged monsters of men. House Escher and House Goliath are old enemies, especially considering how Escher dismisses Goliath as simple, brutish, and often refer to them as meatnecks. Next, we are able to see the images of the high level of customization we can look forward to, from weapons, skills, equipment, and armor stats to class specifics and house perks. On top of all of this, we should also have a fair amount of customization from a cosmetic perspective, which will hopefully translate nicely into actual deployments and visual during combat. From a gameplay perspective, it'll be interesting to see the interplay between range and melee capabilities. I personally tend to favor long-range deployments and will be testing out how that will work with the various houses, especially considering Escher and Goliath are historically considered to favor closer range combat and weaponry. Now on to verticality, which is a concept we saw in the very first dev post. Watching some of the gameplay, we get a better sense for the importance and the role of verticality will play in each engagement. It's further expanded upon that various choices will have to be made during each engagement to charge in guns blazing or use the environment to our advantage. While it's not exactly clear how this might play out, we do see a few images where specific gangers might be able to use unique abilities with various environmental factors or interplays. Then there are leaders, which will have special abilities and skills to eliminate enemies or buff allies. One item alluded to earlier was the interactivity of the environment, which was exciting to see and seems to play a role from this video. From lifts to placing medical stations to opening cargo containers to leveraging ziplines and more, it's clear from the latest video that there will be major factors within the environment that we will need to take advantage of to be successful. This latest video goes on to outline the use of analyzing opponents to find weaknesses, while simultaneously trying to limit our own fighters' weaknesses to minimize lasting and permanent injuries. In previous dev posts, we learned that we can heal these injuries by replacing limbs and augmenting our fighters with bionics and more, further adding to customization options. Keeping our gangers alive will also be critical so they can gain experience so we can spend on skill points and abilities, stats, and perks. Also, there will be components of base building which we gain from infamy and riches, which we can then upgrade core structures within our base, such as medical labs, training grounds, salvaging benches, and gambling den and breweries. We can also spend hard-earned spoils of war on gear, equipment, and weapons, which will be interesting considering the various houses and the weapons and playstyles they favor. Finally, the video concludes on outlining 3 main game modes, which I go into greater detail in another video. Check out the little eye in the top of this video to check that video out. For game modes, we have the main storyline campaign, where we will be able to explore and learn the game. Next, we have operations, which will allow us to play and take command of a gang through procedurally generated missions and objectives. It's an endless game loop, as the devs outlined in a previous post. The third game mode is online multiplayer, which includes a competitive permanent contest mode as well as a non-competitive exhibition mode where we can practice our skills and abilities and strategies against other opponents. Overall, the video provides some additional insights and to the gameplay, which looks pretty awesome. With that said, there were a few points in the video that caused some concern, such as the fluidity of movement as well as how the multiplayer aspect will play out. Will the game take forever, or have they figured out an efficient way to keep the game pace moving while also giving us enough time to think through and strategize our next move and options? Thanks so much for watching, and please consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Now check out the full video to follow.
Welcome to Necromunda, an impossibly massive hive city of winding corridors, lawless humanity, and gang warfare. In savage third-person tactical battles, claim dominance and glory for your house, defeat your enemies, and triumph. Underhive Wars is a tactical RPG where you control a gang of custom-made fighters from one of three great houses as they vie for control and resources. The three houses, with their gangs, are Orlok, Goliath, and Escher. The Orloks are industrious gunfighting range specialists. The Escher are all women and deadly agile melee fighters. And the Goliaths are humongous, gene-forged monsters of men. There are dozens and dozens of ways to customize every ganger with weapons, skills, armors, stat priorities, rank, class, and house-specific perks and upgrades, and much more. Choose how your fighters play, from silent snipers popping heads and severing limbs at long range, to brutal melee warriors hacking at their enemies in close combat. Cosmetic customization goes just as far, with infinite variations for each and every gang and fighter. Shoulder pads, knee guards, chest plates, boots, piercings, hair, along with color scheme variations, can all be customized on a gang or individual level. Your gang will never look the same as another. In combat, Underhive Wars is a game of freedom and verticality. Each class has its own series of choices to make. Should a saboteur stay back and find edge angles to apply their skills, or go in guns blazing to secure the best spot and scupper enemy plans? Will your leader use their superior skills to take out enemies, or buff their allies with rousing speeches or threats? The options are endless. Medicae stations, bridges and lifts, abandoned cargo containers, zip lines, gas traps, hazardous materials, cogitator terminals. The Underhive is full of decisions to make to outsmart opponents. If all else fails, you can outgun them with deadly weapons, grenades, flamethrowers, rivet cannons, saw blade guns, and outposition them from higher ground with tactical advantages. Don't forget to analyze the weaknesses in your opponent's gear to cause greater damage. With permanent injuries for your gang if you take too many hits, these decisions truly matter. Between battles, your gangers gain experience to spend on stats, skills, perks, and more, while the riches of your gang as a whole let you purchase weapons, armor, and war gear to equip them. As you grow in infamy and riches, new options for training facilities and special missions will become available to you. All this thrilling action is shared across three main game modes. The story-based campaign mode provides an exciting story of allegiances, betrayal, and violent gang warfare, plus teaches you everything there is to know about Necromunda Underhive Wars. Penned by Necromunda Universe veteran Andy Chambers, it's a wild ride. Operations mode is where you take your own gang to war with permanent rewards and endless evolution. Win glory for your house and take down enemies across the entire Underhive in procedurally generated missions. Finally, there's breakneck multiplayer, where you fight players around the world for dominance, glory, and wealth, using your homemade gangs in brutal up to 4-way engagements, competing for the same objective. Build your own gang and fight for wealth and glory when Necromunda Underhive Wars launches on PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4 September 8th.